My name is Todd Doyle. I'm Chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and I'd like to welcome you to tonight's virtual meeting. For the records, I would like to note that the required meeting agenda and application materials are available on the town website. Because in-person attendance at public meetings is likely to increase the risk of transmission of COVID-19, this hearing is being conducted in accordance with Governor Lamont's executive orders regarding the conduct of public hearings. And before we go further, I'd just like to remind those who are dialed into the WebEx portal, you may see us looking at different devices or phones. We have much of the meeting materials is delivered to us electronically. So I have a couple of iPads here and a phone, so I may be switching back and forth. But I assure you that I and the other members of the commission are giving you our undivided attention. And if anything, we're looking at our different devices to find more information or to review some of the information already submitted on each particular application. Will the zoning enforcement officer please call the roll?
Michael D'Amato,
Here.
Todd Doyle,
Here.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Here.
Michael Johnson,
Here.
Don Neville,
Here.
John Harris,
Here.
Olinda Morales, Bob LaChance.
Here.
That is the roll.
Thank you. This is Todd Doyle, Chair again. For the record, I'd like to note that we do have a full quorum of the board. Board members and town staff are participating via WebEx, and members of the public can view the meeting live on West Hartford Community Television or on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 96 and Frontier TV Channel 6099 or at www.whctv.org. The meeting is also being recorded for on-demand viewing, which will be available on the town website. Because of the virtual format of this meeting, there are some special rules and procedures that I need to cover before we begin. First, I'd like to ask all participants please to mute your microphones and devices when you are not speaking. Second, pursuant to executive order, all speakers must state their name and title each time they speak, and I will ask members of the board and staff not to address other participants directly. Rather, comments and requests for information should be made through the chair, meaning that after you state your name, simply preface the question or comment with, quote, through the chair, and when you are done, I will recognize the person who is most appropriate to respond. With that, will the zoning enforcement officer please proceed with the first matter on our agenda?
West Hartford Zoning Board of Appeals legal notice. The Zoning Board of Appeals will hold a virtual meeting on Wednesday, April 21st, 2021 at 6:00 p.m. to hear and act on the following petitions. Petition number 0421, 43 Hilldale Road. Petition of J and R Thierfeld, record owners, requesting a variance to section 177-20, obstructions in yards, requesting a plus or minus 10-foot variance to the required 35-foot rear yard setback on the western side of the structure for a proposed carport, R13 zone. Virtual meeting viewing instructions. The public hearings will be conducted exclusively as virtual meetings in accordance with Executive Orders number 7B and 7I issued by Governor Ned Lamont. The public hearings will be broadcast live on television on West Hartford Community Interactive Comcast Channel 96 and Frontier TV Channel 6099 and streamed live at www.whctv.org. Audio comment. Any interested persons may participate in real time by calling 1-408-418-9388 and using the following access code 129-178-4184 at 6 p.m. Participants using caller ID blocking will not be permitted to participate. Participants will be called on in the order in which their call was received. When prompted by the chair and/or moderator, participants will have the permission to speak on matters germane to the hearing. Written comment. Any interested persons may submit a written comment via email to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov. Written comments will be made part of the record at the April 21st, 2021 public hearing and posted on the town's website. In order to be included as part of the record, comments must meet the following requirements. Comments must be received no later than 3:30 on April 21st, 2021. The subject of the email shall be application number and address, ZBA April 21 public hearing. The body of the email must begin with the interested person's full name and street address. Comments must be germane to the application and no longer than 500 words. Legal notice posted on 4/9/21. Todd Doyle, Chairperson of the Zoning Board of Appeals. Brittany Birmingham, Secretary to the Board.
Thank you, Ms. Birmingham. The public was provided opportunity to submit written comments on the application via email and mail. These comments have been published on the town's website as a .pdf file and are embedded in the online agenda. For the record, the zoning enforcement officer will now read the names of all those who submitted written comments.
We have no submitted comments.
All right, thank you, Ms. Birmingham. Members of the public are welcome to continue sending comments to comment.tpz@westhartfordct.gov, and those comments will be distributed to the members of the board and are also read into the record. Following the testimony of the applicant, the public who may have called into the meeting will have a chance to comment about the current application. Upon conclusion of the applicant's response to any comments, and if there are no further questions from the board, the public hearing will be closed. It is the practice of the board to render a decision on an application the same night following all items on the public meeting agenda. I would like to conclude by thanking everyone in advance for their patience. And with that, before we begin the application, Ms. Birmingham, I'd like to make sure we have on record which commissioners will be sitting for this application.
Right. It will be Commissioner D'Amato, Chair Doyle, Vice Chair DiMatteo, Commissioner Johnson. I believe Commissioner Neville is recusing himself.
That's correct.
And then the alternate will be Bob LaChance.
Okay, thank you for that. And with that, will the applicant please proceed with their presentation?
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Chuck Shimkus. I'm with the law firm of Shimkus, Murphy, and Rosenberger. We're located in Hartford. I am a West Hartford resident. I'm here tonight representing the homeowners, John and Robin Thierfeld, 43 Hilldale Road, West Hartford. I presume that the Commissioners have received my revised letter dated March 16th to the Chairman of the West Hartford Zoning Board, together with the application, as well as a copy of the deed vesting title in the Thierfelds, volume 1093, page 384 of the West Hartford Land Records, a copy of the assessor's record of the property, the map, a copy of the site plan showing the carport and the encroachment into the side yard, which encroaches into the rear yard for zoning purposes, copy of the hand-drawn plan for the carport with the roof and structures supporting the roof, as well as pictures of the carport from a variety of different angles, plus pictures showing the width of the side yard, as well as the Commissioners presumably have received the petition that was signed by the neighborhood and is made part of the record.
So thank you, Mr. Shimkus. Just for the record, I and the other commissioners have received the petition, the letter, and the supporting materials. Thank you.
Thank you. So tonight we're here requesting a 10-foot variance into what is effectively a 35-foot rear yard setback requirement in this particular R13 zoning district. This property, although we have a 35-foot rear yard setback requirement, is really the side yard, the western portion of my client's property. So before we get started to talk about the substantive issues of the variance request, I would like to have my clients give a brief summary about the circumstances that led up to the carport being constructed already. If you've been out to the property, presumably you've seen that the carport exists. It's there, fully built. And I just wanted to make sure that the commission did not think that my clients went off and built this carport without first going and applying for a permit. Kind of an interesting situation how it all developed, and I'm going to let John or Robin address that. They've joined us here at the meeting tonight to discuss what occurred with respect to their submission of the building permit and the subsequent chain of events thereafter.
Hi, hope everybody can hear me. Thank you for entertaining this evening.
Mr. Thornfield, would you please state your name for the record, please?
I'm sorry. My name is John Thierfeld. I live at 43 Hilldale Road in West Hartford.
Thank you.
Certainly. Apologize for that. We got involved with this before COVID had started, and the idea of putting a Cloder Farm pre-built garage into that area next to the home. I visited town hall personally and met with somebody in zoning at the time just to sort of get an idea of what would be involved with doing that. And they informed me that at the time it would be fine. They could give me approval on the spot. But the problem was that it couldn't be, because it was a pre-built structure, it couldn't be next to the home. It would have to be 6 feet away from the house. And when I came back and looked at things, my wife and I decided that it was just going to sort of be sticking out in the middle of that yard. Access to it wouldn't be really all that easy, and we decided that it's sort of not going to be the prettiest thing for the neighborhood. So we decided and started thinking about doing a carport. By the time we put the plan into play, COVID started, and it was now March when we started to put everything together, and going online, since we weren't able to go into town hall anymore. I followed the procedure that said to fill out an application online, submit it along with our payment for the appropriate fees, which we did. And I sent everything in and never got any response back. It turned out at the time, or later on in this process, I found out that I was using an AOL account, and I was told by a couple of people that your servers from the town weren't getting through back when they were responding to AOL, and I wasn't receiving any correspondence. So we waited a little bit, and we found that our check had been cashed, and I being myself and wanting to do things in person, I made a few phone calls, kept getting voicemails and left some messages, and wasn't getting anything responses back. So with the check being cashed, and with the fact that we had already, understood that we could put a building out farther, I guess I was a little naive in not knowing that the rules were different on this, and we proceeded, because of the situation with COVID, to build this the carport. Again, I didn't realize that I was doing something that wasn't being approved, and as time went on, and not knowing, we decided that we really wanted to make sure we got all the permits correct and stuff. And so my wife started to send a couple of emails, at which point we got a response back, or actually through a phone call. They said that they weren't getting I wasn't getting the AOLs, but we changed to our Gmail account. And that's when I started getting some correspondence. But in a phone call, I was told by Mr. Pudlick that, we didn't meet the criteria, and that we needed to now, pursue this application in order to find it. So, we had gone ahead on not knowing, but as I said earlier, I thought approval was part of that process, and obviously it between AOL and COVID, we sort of got caught in a sort of a bad place.
Okay, so thank you, Mr. Thierfeld. Just one question for you. When was the carport actually constructed?
April?
I believe it was
April
April.
2020.
Yeah, late April of 2020.
April 2020. All right, yeah. So that was like the high, or the, depending how you look at it, the low point of COVID, right? Everybody was kind of
Right.
locked down, and it was tough to get. All right, okay, that's helpful, and I appreciate that background. Thank you. And then maybe a question for Ms. Birmingham as much as for the applicant. I'm confused about the Cloder Farms issue, because wouldn't that, as a standalone building, still need to meet the requirements for the setbacks?
Right. So I wasn't part of that conversation, but it's my understanding that it was going to be a detached accessory structure. And
Yes.
so therefore it would need that 6-foot separation and could go into the required rear yard.
Okay, so I get the 6 foot, but the rear yard, you mean the western side, or do you mean the other side with the white vinyl fence?
The western side.
Okay, so if we have a 35 rear yard setback on the western side, and if this current structure, the carport, which is 14 feet wide, requires a 10-foot setback, requires a 10-foot variance, I'm just trying to understand how a detached structure, which is 6 feet away from the western side of the existing building, wouldn't that already be 2 feet into the 35 foot setback, or am I not thinking of this the right way?
Accessory buildings can be located in the rear yard, so they have different setback requirements. In this case, the carport is attached to the home, and it takes
Got
the
it.
setbacks of the main structure.
Okay, got it. And would it make a difference if the carport was enclosed?
No, nope. So a carport is because of the attachment to the home, it is closed or not
Part of the home.
enclosed, it is part of the home.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Brittany. All right. So Mr. Shimkus, if you want to continue your presentation.
Sure, thank you. Brittany, you stole a little of my thunder. That's absolutely right with respect to the fact that had it been an accessory building, interestingly enough, and it seems somewhat counterintuitive, but they actually could have built it 6 feet from the house and therefore gone farther, or at least closer to the western boundary. So because it's attached, it then has to meet the 35-foot requirement. This property, as the commissioners I'm sure are well aware, is bounded by 2 streets. You've got Hilldale Road in the front, and to the side is Russell. As a result, this western boundary has a 35-foot setback, and the normal R13 district for a side yard would only have been 10 feet. As a result, because of the fact that it's unique in that it's a corner lot, it has this large setback requirement on their western boundary. So we are here today asking for a 10-foot encroachment variance into that side yard requirement. That's 10 feet plus or minus per the plan on file. As Brittany correctly mentioned, because it's attached, we need this variance. I'll point the commissioners to the fact that my clients did go throughout the neighborhood and went ahead and had a petition signed that their neighbors not only reviewed the plan, of course they could just look at the garage, the carport as it exists, and that they had no objection to the variance application, and in fact support the variance application. You have a whole listing of different homeowners right around the subject property. But specifically, I do want to show you, there was one particular person at 47 Hilldale Road, and the name I believe is Kranti Paul Singh. That's the neighbor that's closest to where this carport is. And that's the neighbor that, you know, if you were to grant this variance, would be the most impacted. And they consent and support this application, as do all these other names of parties right around the subject premises. You know, as I mentioned, we're subject to this substantially larger side yard requirement because it's deemed to be a rear yard because of the 2 streets. So to me, that is the legal hardship, that we're subject to this much greater restriction because he's on a corner lot, or they're on a corner lot. I don't really need to do much by looking at the plan with you because it's built. So presumably you've gone ahead and seen the carport, how it looks. You've also had an opportunity to see how much distance there is between the carport and the neighbor on the western side. There's a substantial amount of room between the two. Interestingly enough, if you happen to have been out there, the property that's on the other side of Russell Lane, on the same corner, Russell and Hilldale, has the same type of configuration. They have a single car garage with a carport. So I do think that this carport is certainly in harmony with the neighborhood. I don't think it decreases anybody's value. In fact, I would argue that it actually increases because of the nice aesthetics of the carport. It was really nicely pointed, nicely done. And there are unique circumstances affecting this property. So I think it fits within the parameters of your variance requirements pursuant to 177-49B, your variance section. The granting of the variance is certainly in harmony with the neighborhood. It doesn't make the property look any different than the other properties on the street. And to be honest with you, the fact that it's built, I know in some cases would create a bit of a, let's say, prejudice against the applicant. I sat on this zoning board for a number of years, and quite frankly, when someone came in, someone was already built and they didn't pull a permit, we would sometimes have an issue with that. Not always, but sometimes. In this case, it was purely by mistake. And quite honestly, I'm not sure where to assess the blame, but it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is my client made every ability to go ahead and submit the application. They even had their check cashed. They thought they were good to go. So they certainly weren't looking to circumvent the zoning regulations in West Hartford. So given the fact that I think that the structure as built looks wonderful, I don't think it affects values. There is a unique nature to this property, which gives it a legal hardship. I would ask that this commission go ahead and approve the variance. I certainly will be happy to entertain any questions, and my clients are here to do the same.
Thank you, Mr. Shimkus. I have a question, actually, Brittany, for you, because this is going to get a little technical, but I'm thinking about a number of sessions ago, and I think you were there, we had a home that was on a corner. And I may be confusing apples and oranges, and if I am, just let me know. But there was a question about designating one side of the home as a side yard and one side of the home as a rear yard. And because that homeowner in a prior application had already designated one side of the home as a rear yard, they couldn't then say, well, this is a side yard. And the reason I bring this up is because if we were to designate the western side as the side yard rather than the rear yard, and I don't even know if that's possible, but if we could, would that eliminate the need for this applicant to request a variance?
Right. So you're correct. When it's how a house is situated on a lot that determines, on a corner lot, that determines which one becomes the side yard and which one becomes the rear yard, because there's two front yards. So one has to have a setback of at least 35 feet. The other has to have the setback of 10 feet. And unfortunately, in this case, the side yard
Doesn't have 35 feet.
It doesn't have 35 feet, so it has to be on where it is, the side yard.
Okay. All right. Got it. No, I was just trying to use all the tools in our toolbox, right?
Yeah.
All right. Commissioners, does anyone else have questions for the applicant?
Mr. Chair, I may have lost this when the presentation was being done, but when did the initial meeting with zoning take place leading up to the April 2020 date for construction?
I'm going to address that question back over to Mr. Thierfeld.
The initial, as far as the garage, the Cloder Farm.
When you spoke with department staff before the April 2020 construction.
I spoke with them regarding the Cloder Farm one back in the fall of 19, right?
September, October.
Yeah, it was actually, I can put it in perspective because we saw it at Cloder Farms at Eastern States Exposition. And that's where we sort of got this whole idea. So it was the fall, previous fall of 19. And that's when I had the live conversation. I don't remember who I spoke with, and we didn't, as I said, we didn't pursue it at that point. But then I did not have any, further, because that's when the COVID all got involved as we got involved with the carport itself.
Yep, great. And then back to the filing applicant's attorney, the check was cashed prior to the April construction, correct?
Mr. Shimkus, I believe you're on mute.
My apologies. Still trying to get the hang of this. Yes, my understanding is that, in fact, the check was cashed before you commenced construction. Is that correct, John? John?
Mr. Thierfeld?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted too. Yes, it was cashed.
And in fact, that's what led you to believe that you were good to go. The check was cashed, the
Right.
application had been submitted, and hadn't heard anything to say, hey, we're not, this can't be done, or, you need to go take other steps. So logically went ahead and proceeded with the construction.
Correct.
And Mr. Thierfeld, just further to Commissioner Johnson's point, do you happen to recall when that check was cashed? Or when you got notice that the check had been cashed?
I don't remember exactly either. Beginning of April? I'd have to go look. I don't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Sometime in 2021, though, correct?
Oh, yes.
No, not 2020. No, not 2020.
2020. Yes.
That's right.
It was
not 2019.
no,
Right.
no. We did not submit a check for an application in 2019. I just had the conversation, and I had which I had shared with Attorney Shimkus, and I think it was part of our plan. I'm not 100% positive, but I had a plan that had a red mark of what we could do based on that garage. But then when we submitted the application for the carport, the check was pretty much immediately cashed.
Yeah.
And we saw that it had gone through, within the 30 days or whatever, going through the bank.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Johnson, any further questions?
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other commissioners, questions for the applicant? Hearing none, I'd like to, Ms. Birmingham, we've established that there are no prior comments. Is there anyone on the phone who might have comments either in favor or in opposition to the application?
I'll let my colleague, Rob, answer that.
Mr. Chairman, there are no comments from the public.
No comments from the public. Okay, so with no further comments, I appreciate your coming before us, Mr. Shimkus and Mr. and Mrs. Thierfeld. I appreciate your answering our questions. We have no further comment or question, and at this point, we will close the public portion of the hearing and proceed to our deliberations. You're welcome to stay to hear our deliberations, or you can call the office tomorrow or wait for a notice by mail, but you're welcome to stay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We muted. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Okay, may I get a motion, please, to approve application 4-21?
Motion to
Motion.
approve.
Let's see, did I hear Angelo as the first, and I'll do Mike Johnson as the second? Okay, hearing no hearing no complaints, I think that's right. This is a funny one, and this is our first true COVID story, right, for the board. And when I think about April and March, and it was a very different environment, as you all know, than it is today. April, May was really a low point, and it was hard to get a hold of anybody, and nobody was on the road. It was crazy. So I have a couple of thoughts. The one thought is, and this goes to a point that Commissioner Neville's raised in the past. If you can build an accessory building further out into this setback, which our code allows us to do, and yet a carport is not permitted, you tend to think, well, gee, that's part of our code. Maybe we should take another look at and see if that really makes the most sense, because I think this is less intrusive in the neighborhood. It's more aesthetically appealing. And the only thing I hesitate on is, if I understand you correctly, Ms. Birmingham, you said this could be enclosed or non-enclosed. This is actually considered part of the primary structure. So what we're dealing with really is people doing additions to their home, whether it's a garage or a carport or a yoga studio or whatever somebody's going to do, which goes into the setbacks. And so that's where we want to be careful. And so My own sense is that if we were to approve this application, I'd be and it's an application, even though it's the structure is no longer proposed but existing, I'd be inclined to approve it with the caveat that it remains a carport and not become enclosed. Not somebody doesn't make it a den or some other structure of their home. But those are my initial thoughts. And I drove out, I looked at the property, I see the space between the homes. I see what a Cloder Farms standalone garage would look like. I think it's well done. To me, the fact that this thing has been built already, I probably shouldn't say this on the record, but it seems to me that adds to the notion of hardship, because it would be a hardship to tear this thing down that was built in honest good faith. So those are my thoughts, but I welcome comments from other commissioners.
be honest,
Commissioner
I mean, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I mean, I agree with the chair. I'm less concerned with the COVID precedent that was mentioned and more in line with the hardship of the corner lot, and also agree with the chair's insightful remarks about the structure being a carport, and would be comfortable with a boat, with it remaining a carport and not being added as an addition. I think that all makes sense.
Commissioner DiMatteo?
Yeah, I second that. I agree with what was just said. And Ms. Birmingham, did we see a note that you sent in an email? Someone wrote about a fence, or is that a different, regarding another neighbor talking about? Was there an addition to this permit?
No, I don't
Okay.
recall any fence
Okay.
issue.
Or aprobides, was that another? Okay.
That was last month.
month. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
forgive me. I missed that one. Okay.
Okay.
No, I agree. I agree with what Commissioner Doyle has laid out here, and given it, it's a COVID situation. But at the same time, it doesn't make sense that we have a separate building that can eke into the set aside. But I understand. I get the statute. People could start building additions and whatnot. So I'm for approving this.
All right. So as a procedural matter, Ms. Birmingham, and I welcome other comments from commissioners. As a procedural matter, would we need to raise a new motion with a condition that says that this structure remain as a carport, or can we approve the motion as raised and just have a footnote that says that we're establishing the condition that this structure remains as a carport forever and anon?
I think we can approve it as the motion as it stands now. In the letter of approval, we can reiterate that it is to stay a carport, but it's my understanding that any variance that gets passed, the details of the variance are known, the structure, what type of structure it is. And so if they wanted to do any changes regardless, they would have to come back for a variance.
Okay, that makes sense, because this isn't a case where it's a proposed structure and we want to make sure they build it, not out of plastic, but out of more durable materials. This is already built, so we're approving essentially the structure as built with a condition that further improvements to the structure would need to come before the board for approval. Okay. Any other comments before we raise this to a vote? Hearing none and sensing we're ready to vote, Ms. Birmingham, would you please do a roll call vote for the board?
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
and Bob LaChance.
Yes.
It passes 5-0.
Okay, well, good, and congratulations, Mr. Shimkus, Mr. and Mrs. Thierfeld. Place looks great. Sorry about the confusion, and we all want to do what's best for our neighborhood. So I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, commissioners.
Yes,
Thank you.
Commissioners. Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, Ms. Birmingham, do we have some minutes to approve?
We do. We have two sets of minutes. The first is from the January 20th meeting, and those eligible to vote are Todd Doyle, Angelo DiMatteo, Michael Johnson, John Harris, and Bob LaChance.
Okay, well, Chair Todd Doyle would like to make a motion to approve the January 2021 minutes.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
John Harris, seconds.
Thank you, John. All right, all those in favor, Ms. Birmingham, would you please make a roll call vote?
Todd Doyle,
Yes, approve.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Sorry.
yes. John Harris,
John, you may be on mute.
I hit it, but didn't get through. Yes, for John Harris.
and Bob LaChance.
Yes.
The minutes pass.
Okay, and Chair Todd Doyle would like to make a motion to approve the March 17, 2021 minutes.
Motion.
Mr. Johnson, would you repeat that, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the March minutes.
Okay. Second by Mr. Johnson. Any discussion before we vote? Hearing none, Ms. Birmingham, would you please do a roll call vote?
Was Michael Johnson at the March meeting?
I'm sorry. You're right.
That's okay.
I was John Harris there. I was there. So I'll second.
Okay.
All right.
So Michael
Any
D'Amato?
discussion?
Sorry.
No discussion. Go ahead, Ms. Birmingham.
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Don Neville,
Yes.
John Harris.
Yes.
That is one, two, Alinda Morales, not here, but it passes 4-0.
Okay, good. Any other business for the board, Brittany, before we make a motion to adjourn?
Nope, that is it.
I gotta say, I loved the skinny down script for tonight. That was, I think we all did. It's like a real relief.
Send it to you.
Thank you very much. And
My first order of business.
and I'd like to make a motion to adjourn. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, second with Commissioner DiMatteo. All those in favor? Ms. Birmingham?
Michael D'Amato,
Yes.
Todd Doyle,
Yes.
Angelo DiMatteo,
Yes.
Michael Johnson,
Yes.
Don Neville,
Yes.
John Harris,
Yes.
Bob LaChance.
Yes.
That sounds unanimous to me. Thank you very much, commissioners. Good meeting.
Thank
Have a
you.
good night, guys. Thank you.
We're hereby adjourned. All right, good night.
Night, everybody.
Guys.